Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. My name's Steve. This is a show where we deep dive into each and every Angel McMahon song, episode by episode, song by song. We're right in the middle of Jack's January here, celebrating the 20th year of Everything in Transit. We're anticipating some upcoming tour dates, hopefully soon. I always enjoy the dynamic changes between the songs that we discuss in this podcast, though. So last episode, it was a song that I have a lot of history with and a deep connection to. Today, a little bit different. We're talking about a song from the same time period, but one that I didn't learn nearly as much about until later. So I brought a returning guest back today that likes to go deep into the Jack's Mannequin catalog, and every time she's on the show, she challenges me to learn something new about these songs. So returning for her third song episode, welcome back to the show, Lindsay.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, welcome back. Now, Lindsay, this will be the third song we've talked about on the show together. And all three of them have been Jack's Mannequin. So, And spoiler alert for everybody, you've agreed to come back for a fourth Jack's Mannequin song next month with another returning guest. So I got to ask, is Jack's Mannequin your favorite era?
Absolutely, hands down. Interestingly enough, I guess technically this song is from my favorite album, but also wasn't released on my favorite album. So...
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. It is kind of a weird... I was going to bring that up too, by the way. I'm glad you got there already because, it was released as a part of one Jack's Mannequin album and then re-released as a part of a earlier Jack's Mannequin album. So I'm interested to hear how you associate this song, like where you put this song in those albums.
Yeah, so I definitely have an association with People and Things as this song because when I got it, and I think we've talked about this in the past when we talked about Out of It, but the version of People and Things that I have was the CD from Best Buy. So it had all of the bonus tracks that aren't included basically anywhere else. So this was one of the bonus tracks on there. And so I believe actually... on that one, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it a passenger demo was how it was listed, or was it listed as a transit demo?
I think this one, Locked Doors, was listed as a Everything in Transit demo, whereas Out of It was listed as a passenger demo.
That probably is correct.
Yeah.
So
I only know because I looked it up earlier today, so I don't have a memory for these things, but I'm pretty sure. If I remember from about 4 hours ago correctly, I think that's it.
Yeah, so my total association with it was from People and Things, and it was a little surprising to me, honestly, when Everything in Transit was re-released for that anniversary edition, and then it was included as a bonus track on that one. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing a deep dive on this, and was kind of searching around on stuff, and I didn't realize until I was reading on Wikipedia, and I guess I don't know why I didn't realize this, and maybe I missed things back in the day while I was in, college and whatnot, but I didn't realize that this was the song that drove him to start Jack's Mannequin.
Yeah, it's super interesting that this is referred to in some interviews as the beginning of Jack's Mannequin, the kind of bridgeway between something corporate, in a sense, into Jack's Mannequin, into the project. Yeah. So I learned that too.
And I think the thing that's so surprising to me about that is the fact that, it was the song that he wrote. He realized it wasn't the same material that Something Corporate was performing or, could fit into their style. And then he, recorded those demos. There was a really great, I don't know if you watched the interview, but there was a really great interview he did. It was about 30 minutes with Alternative Press where he talks about starting Jack's Mannequin. And he really, recorded the demo and then nothing happened with it. And so it's so interesting to me that this is what started Jack's Mannequin and yet nothing,
Yeah, that video is called An Oral History of Everything in Transit. It's a great listen or watch, however you want to consume it, but it is out on YouTube. I would highly recommend it. I was going to bring it up too. I'm glad you watched it because I didn't want to give you homework, so I didn't want to be like, Lindsay, go watch this 30-minute video. But
I found it fascinating. And in fact, and I'm sure we'll get into this as we discuss the lyrics, but he mentioned something in particular within that video about influences he had. And as I was listening through the song, about 45,000 times today while I was driving to Target, I was like, this kind of has different strains from a different band in there. And I was going to bring it up. And then he brought the band up in that interview. And I'm like, oh man, this is wonderful. So we can talk about that in a few.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, so the song we're obviously talking about today is Locked Doors. It's by Jack's Mannequin, and as we've mentioned, it had a release on People and Things, the Best Buy bonus version, released on October 4th, 2011. Lindsay owns it. I know because she sent me a picture of it before we ever met when we first started deciding to record for the first time together. It was the Out of It episode. And I was like, I've never seen this before where there's like 3 different songs right on the CD. Is this a coincidence now that out of 3 songs, 2 of them have been Best Buy bonus tracks on People and Things? Is that like your... You said that's not your favorite,
No.
right?
Yeah, it's
That's
not.
what I find so interesting about this.
And in fact, I think you gave it away on the last episode. So, I'll mention it here. One of my favorite songs still hasn't been discussed. And so when you reached out to discuss with me, I was like, oh, I would do Locked Doors or that other song. And then you had another guest that said, oh, I'll do the other song or something else.
Yeah.
And so...
In the very same week, by the way. I was chatting with you both, like, planning for January, and you both said the exact same song that we're going to talk about.
Right. So, my favorite song off my favorite album is still to come, I think. So...
Remind me by the end of this conversation, because I do want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was your favorite song, by the way.
Yeah.
Your very favorite, so very cool. Well, I'm glad we're talking about it next time. So we're talking about Jack's Mannequin today, obviously, a lot about it. But it's the year of Jack's Mannequin. It's the year of them coming back. We're hoping for tour dates soon. Mm-hmm. I don't want to delve too much into this side of things, but I'm just speculating. I know Something Corporate released 2 songs last year. I've got this funny feeling that Jack's Mannequin is going to do something like that, but we have no idea. So who knows what could come of that.
I hadn't even considered that to be an option, to be truthfully honest with you.
Somebody mentioned something about like, oh, what do you think they're up to at Andrew's camp right now? Like, what are they doing? And I was like, well, I wonder if they're recording songs or like something. I don't know. It's just a speculation, because if they're going to announce a tour at some point this year, they probably want to have something to release at that time.
I mean, also maybe they're brushing up on Out of It to play.
Yeah. By the way, I was going to bring it up a little bit later, but I'll bring it up right now.
Yeah.
Do you only like to talk about songs that Andrew will never play in concert?
Apparently.
They're your favorites. Your favorite songs are the ones that he'll never, ever play.
And maybe there is a little bit of that in there, because there are certain songs that if we didn't walk into a concert and hear it, would it make me a little disappointed? Maybe. But I feel like the feeling of getting to see one of those songs that you've never seen performed before, you're just like blown away, like, oh my God. And so I think that there's a little bit of like chasing that high where you're like, oh man, if I ever get the opportunity to see this, that would be incredible. And so I do wonder a little bit if maybe some of the reason why certain songs rank up higher on my playlist are because I just don't hear him performed a lot, Like, I know I'm going to walk in, I'm going to hear Dark Blue, I'm going to hear Mixtape, I'm going to hear Cecilia and the Satellite, right? But, like, I heard Made for Each Other twice now, because the cruise. That's not likely going to get played because it's so long, right? And so, like, that's a top one. Last Straw, Arizona doesn't get played very often. This song, I think, you and I were talking earlier today, I can't find any record of it being played. Can you?
No, not a single one. This has never been played live. At least that's out on a set list somewhere.
Yeah, and again, like, circling back to the beginning, for a song that was such an integral point in Andrew's life where he diverged from being in one band into starting another one. Like, once I was convinced until I did that deep dive that he played it during one of his garage sessions over COVID. I was like, it had to have been on the one that he did all the B-sides, that B-side bonanza. I'm like, it has to be there. And I can't find any evidence of it at all. So
I think he did Last Straw, but
he did.
Yeah, but he definitely did not do this one.
He did not.
Because I have a spreadsheet that tracks all the songs that he did in every live stream, on either Camp Wilderness or pre-Camp Wilderness with Instagram, and he never played it.
Yeah.
What you said, it's like Last Straw was on the cruise for a lot of people. Because I was doing it, and a lot of people were doing it like, he's doing it, he's playing it, and we were kind of looking around at each other like, oh my gosh, it's happening. It's that white whale of a song that you're like, oh, it's one of those great songs from the older era that he never plays. And yeah, never this song, never Locked Doors. So
I think it's hard as an artist because obviously there's the songs that you know intimately well, right? And you're trying to build a playlist for people that maybe aren't as into his music as you and I are, which seems impossible to me, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's true, right?
Right.
But
Yeah, I can kind of get it because I've gone to concerts for other artists that I only know 10 or 12 songs out of, you know, their 8 albums. So,
But there is that piece of me that a little bit would love just maybe a small club show, maybe, I don't know, one of the late shows, something like that. A really solid B-side show. Like,
Right.
I think that would be incredible. Like, charge me more money, Andrew. I don't mind, but I would
That's
love to see
exactly
it.
what I've suggested. Yeah, exactly. I put that on Camp Wilderness one time. I'm like, charge 3 times the amount per ticket, a 250 person cap show. The fans who want to see the deep cuts will. If you say you're playing deep cuts, you will sell it out no matter how much you charge. I don't care how much you charge.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I could start a list now and we could have that place half full based on just people I've
yeah.
met through the fandom.
Right. Yep.
You sold out
Yeah.
a cruise and pre-sale. I promise people will be knocking down the doors to get in.
Right. It doesn't even matter where in the United States. I mean, I'm sure it'd be in the United States. It doesn't matter where in the country it would be. People would show up. People would
I would
sell
fly
it out.
there. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely would. Yeah, that would be an event. So back in the Everything in Transit era, you didn't know this song, right? You didn't know Locked
did not.
Doors from that era. Okay, so I didn't either, and I've kind of mentioned on the show that I was a little unknowing about everything that was kind of going on behind the scenes. So here we have Andrew McMahon starting something new, coming out of something corporate, and thinking about his next move, writing songs. And so what I've heard is that, or what I've read, you know, kind of gathered from that video we both watched, is that he was writing songs but not even sure it was for something new yet or not. He
Right.
wrote Locked Doors with the thought, okay, I'm writing a song. I am the songwriter, one of the songwriters for something corporate. Therefore, this is probably a something corporate song. But then it became something else. And so Locked Doors became the first potential Jack's Mannequin song. But I wasn't scouring the internet like you back then. Like, I didn't know to look for that stuff. So did you know that the guy from Something Corporate was starting a new band that spring?
Actually, I got into Jack's Mannequin before I got into Something Corporate. So 2005 was my freshman year in college.
Okay.
One of my best friends, and I think we talked about this a little bit with Out of It, she and another friend of mine really introduced me into Jack's Mannequin. So I didn't actually get into Something Corporate until a couple years later, just because I fell in love so much with like the ease and the style of Jack's Mannequin. You know, I really like the punk pop, you know, style of Something Corporate, but there's just something that's like very like mellow and easygoing and laid back about Everything in Transit, which is interesting because for a song that would theoretically end up on the album, this song, if you listen to it at baseline, I think does have some of that like mellowness to it, but it's not a mellow song lyrically at all.
No.
It's like a little angry. So, you know, that's kind of interesting to hear in that too. But no, I wasn't aware of Something Corporate well enough at that point. And honestly, I don't think, at least from the research I've been doing, I don't think this was released at all before 2011. I can't find anything that would point me in that direction.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think it was officially out there. I don't know if it was out there to anyone except Andrew's inside circle, people who are listening for the purpose of deciding whether it made the album or whatever you do. But yeah, I don't think so. I'm just wondering if there were people, and I'd love to hear from anybody who, for this is true, if anybody ever heard this song around the 2005 era, if it was out there anywhere in any form, because I know he released a couple of those songs on his website. It was not this one. I know he had those demos, but as far as I know, the demos didn't see the light of day until in more recent years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this was out in any form, but it was interesting to me to think, are there people who knew this song from the Transit era, and then people like yourself who first knew it from the People and Things Deluxe Edition, and then people like myself who didn't even discover this song until 2015 when the 10-year Deluxe Edition of Transit was released. That's the first time I ever heard it. I mean, even then, I probably didn't pay a whole lot of attention to that song. It wasn't until a couple years later, and I think I was out on YouTube, like looking at Andrew Jack's Mannequin B-sides, and I came across it again. And I was like, oh yeah, this is one of those that was on Transit. But anyway, so there's several different ways that people could have discovered this song. And that's why I asked you where you associate this song from. Because for me, it's an Everything in Transit era track, ultimately, not only because we know the history now, but also because that was the context I found it in, was that 2015 Deluxe Edition.
No, and I even dug back into, because I went to the Ravinia show in 2011 when he released, or around the time that he released People and Things, thinking like maybe it would have shown up on that playlist. It didn't. That was the concert that he did with Guster. And, it wasn't, again, I'm a little fuzzy on my years here because this was the end of my nursing school, start of my career. But I know shortly thereafter was when the Jack's Mannequin website went down, and it was like, Jack's Mannequin is done. And then I was like very sad, very, very sad, because I was like, oh my God, he's done. There won't be anything else. And then, of course, like that was a transition point. So
that was probably end of 2012 after they played that last show. Maybe they kind of timed that all up together. Yeah. Whereas you said the Guster show, that had to be fall of 2011. We've talked about that before in that I know why I didn't go to that show. It's because my daughter was born like within that month. So that was not even on my radar, even though I'm a big fan of both artists. So
I think that the thing too that's so interesting to me about knowing that this song was kind of the passageway into the creation of Jack's Mannequin and the formation of Everything in Transit, which I know depends on who you'll talk to, but I think ultimately in the fan base this is seen as like a perfect album, right? Like it's one that you can play start to finish. There are no skips. Like if I had to pick a series of perfect albums, like this always tops my list. And thinking about that and looking at it, it's interesting because had Josh written all of Something Corporate, like that would make sense to me why this would be the perfect album, right? Because this is Andrew's time to be a songwriter. But the fact that both he and Josh wrote 2 albums before this, and this is essentially his junior album, and it comes out like ultimate fire. Like it's so impressive to me that, essentially when they talk about freshman albums, the reason why they're so great usually out of the gate is because it's your life's work. And like not only is
up
this
to that moment forever.
And not only is this not his life's work, the fact that, he kind of referenced in that video, like there were different pieces that led into Everything in Transit being written, like with William leaving the band, for instance, in 2003. You think that was like a year of his life that he, a year to 2 years where, the breakup with Kelly and all of this is going on, that he created this like masterpiece. And it like is just mind blowing to me that someone's third album can come out that strong, because it's so atypical in the music scene.
It is. And I really liked what he said in that video, which again, I'll link that in the show notes so everybody can listen to it. But he says, it formed out of this moment where it was the first time I really had access to a recording studio, and I had songs that I didn't have anybody to answer to.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was the key here, because it was just him, and then he pulled in Jim Wirt for Jim Wirt's opinion. And I definitely want to talk about Jim Wirt's involvement in this track, because Jim Wirt was basically the second member of Jack's Mannequin for a little while.
Yeah.
It was Andrew writing songs and him showing them to Jim. You and I know that there was a series of demos out there. And I'm not sure if everybody else is aware, but there's a series of demos that was pre-Transit. And the very first one on that demo list is Locked Doors. There was other songs on there like Holiday from Real and Dear Jack, as well as like several others that I've never heard anywhere else. But it was essentially Andrew and Jim Wirt, Andrew asking for Jim Wirt's blessing on these songs. And then throughout the creative process, they started pulling in what would become band members, pulling Bobby back to the fold, pulling in Jay McMillan, Tommy Lee in some cases, as we all know. And other people. So back to your point, Lindsay, I wonder if that's what was so magical about this moment. It's like, well, I don't have to go through 5 different band members to kind of approve things. I don't have to go back to a record label to say, does this work? Oh, this didn't work. I got to do something different. Okay, let me try something different. It's just like, nope, this is just what we made, and then we're going to go shop a label. So a little bit of a different process.
Yeah, it is. And, the songwriting aspect of it, I don't have familiarity with, a little outside my wheelhouse professionally. It is interesting because I could see the benefit of being able to bounce ideas off of somebody. But when you're talking about something that like is affecting you personally or deeply, like, losing the love of your life, or off topic, off album, but like the birth of his first child, right? Like nobody else is having that experience the same way that you're having it. So I could see where writing those songs or talking about those things would be difficult when someone's like, oh no, I think you should phrase it this way. despite the fact that people do have similar lived experiences, if that makes sense. I feel like I would way overthink it myself, where I'd be like, I can kind of get there, but I just need a little bit more of a push from someone else to really get me there, which I think probably speaks to the skill set and the, like absolute genius of a songwriter he is, right? Because I don't know that I would be able to find those words all the time.
And also his producer, Jim, who, again, heard those initial demos and said, yep, these couple are good, throughout the rest.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, we all think, oh my gosh, what were those songs? What could they have been? How amazing would that have been? But then again, we got what we got and everything in transit.
Well, and
good move.
I know you recently went and looked at the Dear Jack documentary to put in the Everything in Transit in the what I'll call the original song order. Which, again, this was not part of. Like, wasn't even mentioned on that documentary, right?
No.
So,
this was off the list.
But, we've had conversations even about that, about the track order. Like, is the track order from Everything in Transit the way it is now better because we know it, because of the familiarity and the nostalgia and hearing it? Or is it truly better, and that's why they reordered the tracks? And I guess I don't know, right? Because we didn't have it another way.
There's no way to know.
So...
Yeah, because this is how we know it, and we'll never be able to understand it a different way in terms of like our memories with it and our love for this album in the order that it was presented. So,
absolutely.
Is it hard for you to think about this song as an Everything in Transit era track?
Yes, 100%. Because Everything in Transit, in my mind, it starts with those seagulls and it ends with him talking about how he ran out of tape and he doesn't know when he's going to record it again. And that's despite the fact that Last Dry Arizona is a love of mine. I love that song, but that has never been, it's a B-side. It's never one that I've really truly associated. That album is 11 songs long and it ends with him talking, and that's it.
Let's talk a little bit more about that process that Andrew went through. So we talked a little bit about him getting together with Jim, him having a batch of songs, and then them deciding to go kind of in a different direction. But so with Locked Doors, he explained in that video that we watched, he was looking for an outlet for his songs while the SoCo guys weren't really feeling inspired to make music together, which is hard for us to think about as SoCo fans, but there was a time where they just weren't feeling inspired together. And he went off on his own. So he was recording and arranging these new songs in the studio, and he said it felt completely effortless, and he was surprised at how good that felt. Whereas, again, as I mentioned earlier, and this came right from the video, where he's like, I didn't have to go through every band member, all 5 different people that were involved in the decision making. I could just do whatever I wanted, and that's what felt magical about this time in making music. Also, from what I heard him say in that video, it sounds like it felt freeing to him. Let's talk live history. I mean, I guess let's just talk live music because there's no live history. We already know this, which we mentioned earlier. So I can't find evidence of it anywhere. You can't.
Nope.
My only possible suspicion, and I guess it doesn't really matter, is Jack's Mannequin were playing live shows in early 2005.
Yes.
So right after that that final 2005 Something Corporate tour ended, he went right into touring with Jack's Mannequin pretty quick. And they were playing some of these early Transit era tracks. And because that's the first one he wrote, I don't know, I got to believe that maybe they played the song at some point, but we don't know that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were, I know you dig through Setlist FM too, but it seemed like there were a lot of shows listed that had no set list. So if anyone can have a set list from like 2005, 2006 timeframe that's not in there, that's probably where it's at. And who knows, like maybe it was like a teeny tiny bar in New York City or in Southern California, that because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was doing like little, I'm going to call it a tester show. I don't know what the correct terminology is for that, but basically like going and playing little pieces before they released the final album.
Yeah, that's what I read too. I don't know of anyone who has any set lists from that time. I don't know if I know anybody who went to any of those shows, but I'd like to hear from them because then as we all know, he was sick. They had to stop touring for a long period of time. The album was released, and he didn't come back for several months after that to tour again. I do wonder if Locked Doors was ever played, but I don't know that we'll ever know the answer to that. But yeah, that's why I had to ask you at the beginning, like, you must just be clamoring for these songs at Jack's Mannequin shows that maybe they'll never play. So could this be the year? Could this be the year we get Locked Doors?
I think that this could be the year of anything. It feels like very possibility driven. We saw, I think, sorry, all this time is running together for me since COVID. There's like this 5-year block has been so compressed, and it's very unusual for me. But we went and saw at this Sylvie. I think it was last year.
Probably New Friends then?
Yeah, I think it was. And
Yep.
when we walked into sound check, he was playing Broken Bird. Right. So I'm pretty confident that this is the year when anything can happen at sound check.
We got to go to sound check is what you're saying to get these deep cuts.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I better sign up. So.
Yeah.
Again, we are pretty confident Jack's Mannequin's going to play some shows this year. We already know that they're playing some festivals, Innings Fest, actually not far off from this recording, a couple weeks, I think.
Yep.
And then everybody knows about Red Rocks. We know about When We Were Young as well.
And Bonnaroo.
That's right. I know you're going to Red Rocks. Are you going to any other shows or making plans or just kind of waiting for those tour dates to find out like when else you can see them or what's going on this year?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the tour dates. I like fests. We had a really good time together when we went to When We Were Young. But if I am seeing Jack's Mannequin, and especially if I'm seeing an anniversary of Everything in Transit, I would like to see the whole thing, and I don't want a fest set like the radio hits. I want a full album playthrough. I want to be able to see some of those deep cuts. I don't want a 30-minute experience. So, When We Were Young was great and fun, but I think what made that was actually the sideshow that they did.
100% agree with you. Yeah, and so I'm feeling the same way. I enjoyed my time at Four Chord this past summer where I saw something corporate, but part of that was knowing that I would see the full set in the fall at those other cities that I was able to go to, and that I had seen it the prior year at the Late Show in Vegas. So, yeah, I enjoy the festivals for kind of a different experience.
Right.
But I just like with something corporate, I want to see the full Jack's Mannequin set. Hopefully a couple of times, but we'll see. I don't know how much love he'll give the Midwest. He usually hits a city or two, sometimes all three in Ohio. So I'll catch him at one of them at least.
Yeah, I do think that is something that I count myself as very fortunate on, being in the Chicago suburbs and the access that I have to the Chicago music scene, because it is incredibly unusual for an artist to skip Chicago market. And if they do, they're going to hit Milwaukee or Madison. And, usually, it's a slightly longer drive for me, but totally reasonable drive to make, right? So that when I do see that get left off a list, I know that it's probably because they're going to play a fest, and I'm really annoyed. But
I was going to bring up that exact point, Lindsay, that, if they skip your city, they're going to be at one of the big Chicago fests, right? That's got to be it. That's got to be the reason.
And that was 100% with the Out of Office tour, right? As soon as we saw Chicago wasn't on the list, it's like, well, it's going to be Lala weekend or it's going to be Riot Fest weekend, because there's no way they're skipping the Chicago market. And then you look at when the dates are and you're like, okay, well, this narrows down very easily to what it's going to be.
Right.
They did a very nice job of trying to keep that a secret, I would say, but most people in Chicago can kind of deduce that out anymore. So
read between the lines. Yeah.
Oh, but to answer your question, yes, I'm going to Red Rocks. I will be there. I have a special love in my heart for Colorado. My husband and I got married in Vail. If I could pick up and move everybody that I loved with me, we would be in Colorado right now. So Red Rocks is phenomenal. I saw Beck play at Red Rocks when I had to be there for work, and I absolutely, absolutely love it. It's a do not miss venue for me, especially with an artist I love.
Well, you're making me really want to go, but I had to skip something.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about songwriting a little bit with Locked Doors already and when he wrote it. I don't know if I learned this from the video. Maybe you can shed some light on it, but I read somewhere or heard somewhere that this song may have been written as early as December 2003.
I heard him talking about 2003 as far as Will leaving. I guess I didn't tie it together when he was talking that it was this song necessarily.
Yeah, and I don't remember where that information came from, but I thought, well, hey, if he was writing Locked Doors in December 2003, that was 2 months after, or possibly less than 2 months after North came out, which is wild to me. But maybe that explains the sound of this song a little bit that we're going to get into, or the style of it at least. Let's talk about the sound. Dig a little bit more into this song. Let's talk about the sound of it. You've already mentioned a couple things. I'll just start with the intro. The intro is a very unique instrumental intro compared to, I think, any other Jack's Mannequin song there is. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like this keyboard or electronic kind of echoey kind of, do you know what I'm talking about?
Backing up just a moment on
Sure.
the sounds. Did you hear a difference in any of the versions of this song that you have? The one that's on Spotify versus the Let Go demo version versus the one that was on People and Things?
I've never heard the one on People and Things.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
Oh, okay. No, so to answer your question, no. So I've never listened to the People and Things version of it. If it's different, I don't know it. The demo version is very different, in my opinion. Yes, than the Everything Transit version.
What did you notice the most that you saw the difference in it?
Between the demo version and the Everything in Transit version, the demo version is really stripped down. There's not a lot of instrumentation. It's a piano. I can't remember what else is in there, but it's not the electronics and like it's what I call special effects, the production effects and things like that. There's none of that in the demo version.
So I feel like the Let Go demo version was like the baseline. Like I'm just sitting and recording it. And then I feel like the one that was on People and Things was like a step up from that. It had more of like the electronica, but it was like not as crisp. And then I feel like the version that was on Everything in Transit had like, they pulled up the production on certain things so that it had like a crisper sound to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, it has a lot more of that, not just the piano, I guess, is what I noticed about it.
So on Spotify, and I don't know if that's, you listen to Spotify, right?
Yeah.
So it says on Spotify, on the Everything Transit 10th Anniversary Edition, it says remastered, and it says that after every track. So I'm assuming whatever they pulled from wherever elsewhere with this track, they remastered that. Maybe you were hearing more of a demo version, a full band demo version on the People and Things release, whereas you were hearing everything remastered on this new version. I don't know.
Yeah. And I know you have a lot of the stats on the musical instruments. Did it happen to say if there was a drummer on this?
You know, I don't have that. So I don't know if there was a drummer, if there was, whether it was Jay or Tommy Lee, because I get that stuff from the liner notes, and this isn't in the liner notes, right? Do you have the 10th anniversary vinyl? You don't, because you have the original pressing.
I do have the 10th anniversary vinyl. Give me a second.
Okay. I wonder if it would be in there.
You are in such luck.
It is in there?
It's in here. Let's see. Yeah.
All right, so Lindsay just went to get her 10th anniversary edition of the Everything Transit vinyl, and she's going to tell us who played on the track if it's in there.
Yeah. So I think this confirmed what my suspicion was, and I'll tell you, my husband has started really getting into like DJing stuff. It's probably not the right word, but like playing with drum tracks and everything. To me, I thought it was a drum track. And this says that piano and vocals are Andrew McMahon, bass and guitar are Jim Wirt, and drum programming is CJ Erickson. So that would be a drum track, right?
Yeah, and I believe, just going from memory here, I believe Holiday from Real says something similar on it, because I remember being shocked that wasn't actual drums on Holiday from Real.
Yeah, you're right. It says programming is CJ Erickson on Holiday from Real, and there's no drums listed. So I think you're right.
Wow, you were able to find that really quickly.
Oh, everything is in alphabetical order downstairs. So
okay, fantastic. Well, I love the organization. Thank you for bringing that here, because that's information I don't have. Maybe I need to invest in that vinyl. We'll see.
Yeah, well, and then there's this really lovely book that came along with it that has like it's like a lyrics book.
That's beautiful.
So it is. It's really pretty, but it has all that information as well.
But yeah, so maybe if I ever do get the Transit vinyl, I'll go for the 10th anniversary. All right, so something I said earlier I want to bring back up again about the sound, and that's, I feel like the fact that this was either written or made not long after North came out kind of fits in the sound and the style. What are your opinions on that?
I would completely agree with you.
There's not a whole lot of, I mean, you do have songs on Everything in Transit that made Everything in Transit, like I'm Ready and the mixtape, of course, which were a little bit heavier, a little bit more pop punk. But the majority of that album isn't what, take those 2 tracks off, and I wouldn't call the album pop punk. That might not be, a lot of fans might not like that I say that. I don't know. But I feel like there was a little bit more of an edge and aggression and distorted guitars on an album like North, where Locked Doors would probably fit in a little bit more. But I don't know.
Do you find it odd that Andrew continuously says, I've heard this in multiple interviews, not just the one that we watched to prepare for this, but that he feels like he doesn't belong in the pop punk scene, that he was kind of like just adopted in? Because I feel like at the time that pop punk scene, the music was kind of all over the place. Like people were just like looking for their homes.
Yeah, it was. You're right. There was a lot of different directions it was going off in by 2005. Absolutely. I have heard him say that a few times, and it's hard to believe that if we were back in like 2005 or 2002. Now that he's made all this other music that's not pop punk, it's a little bit easier to see, but that would have been a really hard thing to hear back then, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and you look at bands like Panic at the Disco, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out was so different than like...
Came out the same year.
Yeah, right? But I mean, like... 2005, everybody buckle up because you're about to be real broke from all the 20th anniversary tours that are about to happen. But yeah, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, I would say, like, if you compare that to, say, I don't know, Blink 182's Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, right? Like 2 totally different sounds.
Yeah.
But theoretically kind of in the same scene.
Right.
I think we've talked about the Hush sound out of Chicago. Like that band, I would say, leans a little bit more towards like Andrew's style of music. But I think that the, pop punk scene was kind of going through a thing there. And I know you've read a lot of the books about like the term emo and how the bands were really hesitant to embrace the term emo and like what it stood for and kind of how they were denigrated a little bit on it. But like, I think using the term emo versus punk pop makes more sense the whole way across because it is giving a better idea of what the genre is, not so much the musical style.
Right, because a lot is implied in the musicality with the word punk in the name.
Right.
Like, emo really can be anything.
Yeah, I agree because like when I hear the term punk pop, I think, a guitar or 2, maybe a bass player, and then like really fast, loud drums, right? Like it's Blink 182, it's Green Day, it's NoFX, that kind of more hard, I guess, or
faster, playing,
dirty, yeah,
distorted guitars, which you don't get a whole lot of on Everything in Transit.
No,
so
here and there, you hear it in certain things, but this, I honestly think that this even kind of opens the door into the style, the direction of where his music's gone because he started introducing kind of that more electronic sound. And so putting it on People and Things to transition into, his self-titled album actually transitions incredibly well, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. And I've said that before with the way the albums kind of transitioned into each other. And yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I wouldn't have thought about that particular one because again, I don't have that connection with it where it was part of that collection.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting going back in his career and now that we've heard him use a lot more electronic elements in his more modern sound, to look back and read in the liner notes and Everything in Transit that, these drums were programmed. He was actually doing that 20 years ago.
And I think that really, it speaks to the versatility of the artist that you can take those elements and be able to incorporate them in such a fashion that, like, we had to look at the liner notes to confirm that wasn't actually someone playing drums because then you can bring someone into, like, like Tommy Lee or whoever and play that well.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. One of the things I really enjoy about the song, do you listen to the song in headphones or have you?
I have, yes.
And maybe you know where I'm going with this, like with the when he sings stop, 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 and it feels like it's going between your ears and through your head, through your brain. I love that effect. A lot of art. I've heard a lot of artists do that in the past. Like, not at all Andrew related, but one of the artists I used to love listening to in headphones. It was so interesting to hear the production in the 90s was 9 Inch Nails. I mean, even beyond the 90s, to be honest. But like they had these effects. They'd have things like going between your ears and and even within the headphones, it would sound like it was further away or closer, like it was behind you, it was in front of you. So cool how I always remember that about that. But that's what I thought of when I heard that part of the song, because he doesn't do that a whole lot.
No.
Where it feels like it's going between the headphones.
It happens a little bit in Holiday from Real, if I'm remembering correctly,
Okay.
where you can hear the birds on one side and then that like zoom comes up on the other.
You're right. Yep. He does do that.
Yeah, I do like how he manipulates sound though, or plays with it.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it really dynamic and interesting to listen to. And going into the lyrics a little bit then, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's even interesting when he does that stop, 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 because at first it's kind of like you're telling someone to stop. And then when he goes through it the second time, it's like he's so annoyed, like, oh my God, stop. You know what I mean? How he slows it down a little bit. And I just absolutely love that part.
Yeah, it is a cool way that he uses such a simple phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the dynamic stop, 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 start again. And then where he goes from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's definitely get into lyrics. So I get a very distinct picture from the opening lines of this song. Where do you want to start with this one?
So when we were watching that video on YouTube from Alternative Press, when I was listening to this song a bunch while I was driving today, for whatever reason, kind of flashing back to Mr. Brightside from The Killers. And this is why I found it really interesting that he brought up that album in the interview. Because spoiler alert, he said he was very influenced by The Killers around that time. I just feel like this confirms all of my thoughts then. When I was listening to it, I found it really interesting because like the pattern of the song is a little different than what he normally does. He almost repeats himself again, the same way as, Mr. Brightside is basically the same verse twice in a row, right?
Yeah.
He changes it slightly, but he kind of has that style where it's like basically the same story twice in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that really interesting. So hearing that he was very influenced by them confirms that for me, I guess.
I guess I didn't think about it that way, but yes, there's several lines that he keeps the same between the two. It begins differently. Each verse begins differently, but has kind of definitely has similar cadence, which a verse does anyway. But then some of the lyrics stay the same, like the stop, 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 start again. It's hard admitting you're not fitting with your old friends. But then it goes to a different place after that before it goes back into the chorus each time. So yeah. But he does keep a consistency there between the two verses for sure.
And like looking at that first verse, it's really interesting to me because I think it's like a little bit meta where the song is about itself, where he's saying, you've got to match your face. Well, the lyrics that I have are, you've got to match the face with the feeling. So like, I guess, it kind of harkens to like being able to have that outward expression of whatever's happening internally. Right. Mm-hmm. And then check the flash, record, start the healing. Like to me, I guess until this moment I kind of interpreted this differently without knowing the background from that Alternative Press video and like when it was written and how it came about. But basically it kind of seems like to me that it's like trying to write songs together, record songs together that have the feeling that they're both trying to convey, and realizing like that's not happening anymore. Like it's not working. We can't be creative the same way anymore. And so that like check the flash, record, start the healing seems like being in the recording studio trying to write that song.
Oh, wow. That is not what I was thinking with those lines, but I hear that now. I hear yes, that makes complete sense. I was thinking of a photograph. I was thinking of take a picture and you've got to look like you're having fun. You've got to pretend that you're doing okay when really you're not.
And I mean, that could be too, right?
It does make sense. Because of what we talked about earlier, they just weren't feeling creative together. They weren't feeling inspired together to make music, and that he had to go off on his own. So, yeah, I can definitely see both actually.
And I think that's like what makes this song so interesting too, that it's hard admitting you're not fitting with your old friends. Like, I don't know many people who haven't had that experience before, either them personally saying like, you know what, this group, I'm not getting what I need out of it anymore. Like I've grown and they've grown in a different direction and I have to move on, or being on the receiving end of that. Right. So I think that that's something that's super relatable, even if the first part isn't. But again, like being able to interpret it in the way that, like, you know, maybe being at a party and not feeling like this is where you're supposed to be at and you're supposed to put on this face, or, you know, some social event or something. I think that works incredibly well.
Yeah, I think this is a feeling that, you know, most anybody can relate to, in that, because the way I interpreted these lines was when I have to be at work and I'm running a training or something and I'm up in front of people, or when I used to be a teacher, and when I was a counselor, I'd give presentations, and you're talking, and no matter what's going on in your life behind the scenes, you still have to present the same way. You have to present a certain type of persona, right, to the people in front of you. You can't, you know, let the terrible things that might be going on in your life creep in. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, no one knows how bad it is behind the scenes right now for me, but I'm out here just playing the rock star because that's what I'm supposed to do right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely see the studio life as well, and how they just weren't gelling, because it's hard admitting you're not fitting with your old friends is nearly the next line. So
yeah,
totally makes sense.
And then the clock is ticking and the clicking is the only thing in your head kind of, you know, plays into two different ways, right? Like counting down those minutes. But if you're taking it back to a studio situation, like the click and rewind and
Definitely.
like having to do take after take after take, I could see where that could play into that as well.
I'm definitely seeing that here now too. Yes. He's having to spend time here, and he doesn't even want to be there. I really like those. This is more of a you know, the sound of it versus the lyrics, but I want to throw this out there. I really like those drum fills. After the stop, stop, stop in the first verse is like a drum fill coming into start again. And then as he goes from that line you just read into in your head, and then there's another drum fill into the chorus. Now we know they're not actual drums, but you know, good programming, CJ.
That's right.
This sounds good. I mean, that's art too. So
yeah, seriously, and it's difficult. Like I watched my husband playing around with that, trying to create music, and see that, and way harder than I would have ever thought in my life to create those sounds. And he's like explaining to me about how you can manipulate sine waves, and I'm like, okay, this is way above my pay grade.
Yeah, I don't know a thing about it. So
yeah, well, and the in your head one, even, it kind of sounds like a little blurry is the term I'm going to use, like where it sounds a little confusing to my brain the way it's recorded, and that like it's not super crisp, which I think is interesting, because it's kind of like are you imagining this, or is this real life, you know? And so I like that manipulation he does with the sound there too,
to kind of fit with what he's singing. What do you think about this chorus? So I feel like we hear the piano more throughout the chorus, but I'll just go ahead and read it. Pieces of your love life came crashing down and breaking up, and locked doors aren't that hard to bust through. Did you stay true to what's been true to you? For you, does that fit in with what you were talking about in the verses, being in the recording studio with his band?
Yeah, so the lyrics that I actually have, and only because I grabbed this, so was pieces of your other life came crashing down.
Really? Is that in the liner notes?
It's in the liner notes. Pieces of your other life came crashing down and breaking up.
Well, a shock in real time right here on the podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Because, I could have. I was sure it was love life. Wow.
So was I.
Oh my gosh. Pieces of your other life. So his other life being something corporate?
Maybe, you know, and so I have to say that the thing that I love about that line is when people talk about like their life falling apart, they're like, oh, my whole life is falling apart, right? Like I lost my job, and, you know, I broke up with this for blah, blah, blah. And I think it really makes your life small when you have a few things, and not to say that like people don't have, you know, terrible tragedies and like everything is taken from them. I don't want to imply that at all. But for the most part, when people talk about that, they say like my life's falling apart, it's crashing down, but it isn't usually everything. And so I love that he says like pieces of your other life instead of like your whole life is crashing down, right? Because it's really implying that like there's more to you that's going on, but this part is the broken part,
It's a good point.
which I really love. I also like the did you stay true to what's been true to you
Yeah.
part.
In this completely fits in the context of what we've been talking about, the transition between something corporate and Jack's Mannequin. All of these lyrics are beginning to fit together for me in the context of that story of his life at the time. So just trying to figure out who he really is. Is he the guy? Is he the guy in the pop punk scene in something corporate? Is he the singer-songwriter? Is he a loner? Is he a guy in a band? Is he this single guy loving life, acting crazy on the weekends? Is he this relationship guy? Who is he? Is he, Yeah, so far from with what we talked about, I don't see much of this having to do with Kelly and his relationship, especially when you said it's pieces of your other life instead of love life.
And I don't know, like, I think when people talk about like having mantras or having, goals set out for them, like, I think this is part of why this song speaks to me so much is, did you stay true to what's been true to you when all of the wreckage settles? So, like, I'm willing to go down in flames if I have been, true to what my values are, and like, you see that all the time, right? Like, different actors or singers or whatnot getting in hot water or losing their careers or whatnot because they stood up to something that was unjust or whatnot.
Something they disagreed with, yeah.
Or somebody was mistreated and they spoke out, and then you're suffering the repercussions from that. And so I think having that in the background of your mind all the time, it's interesting to see in his song him questioning that. And maybe not even for himself, maybe it's for somebody else, right? Who knows? But just that concept of being able to stay true to what's been true to you and what's been true to your values, I think is so very important. And it's interesting. I don't know. Knowing now that this was the song that transitioned the two bands, it makes me wonder if he was questioning himself. Like, should I be staying true to something corporate because they've stayed true to me?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
I think he's more questioning himself. Like, is this who I am, or was that who I am, or can I be both? So I know now he's probably come to terms with the fact that he can be both. But
in general, again, I think that's something that's super relatable for people. Like, everyone goes through
Definitely.
points of their life where they have to decide, am I going to stand up for this thing I believe in, this value, this person, no matter what the consequences are going to be.
The next part of the chorus is great. When all of the wreckage settles, will all of your precious metals sleep with you like the devil who seduced you? You better get used to waking up alone. And again, in my new interpretation, based upon what we've talked about now, I'm wondering, so when all the dust settles, will all the accolades that he's earned up until this point comfort him in this time? Because he's going to be, it's just him now, basically. Now it does say, will the precious metals sleep with you like the devil who seduced you?
Yeah.
So I don't know if something's drawing him out, like some kind of drugs, temptations of something else, of another kind, are drawing him away from maybe what's important. I don't know. Up to this point, I had thought you better get used to waking up alone was like, no more Kelly. Kelly's not here anymore because he chose the path that didn't include Kelly. But I'm beginning to wonder now, because this sounds more like a separation of him and his bandmates than a Kelly song.
And it's almost a little threatening too, like, being seduced by, money or power or fame or whatnot, and then you take that road, and is it the correct choice? And it's kind of that butterfly effect moment, and being able to like look back at your life and say, like, was this the right path, or was this the point path where things diverged? And so I really like that. I also really like, my book says metals, metals, and I've seen medals, but either way, like, that's such a fun play on words, right? Like, it's either, the metals that you're winning or like the money, right? So either way, it works so well.
Right. It works both ways. Yeah, you're right. I've got the medals, so I thought it was more of like accolades.
But again, it works, right? Like,
I wrote something in my notes. They're like, who's the devil that seduced him? Was it drugs? Was it friends that were, bad influences or something, kind of drawing him away?
Was it fame? Was it realizing?
Yeah.
Was it coming home to Kelly? Because he talks about they were, on the road so much and they were getting sick of traveling and touring. Like, or was that the devil? Like to try to build something corporate up, and they realized, oh God, that's not enough. And at that time, you would be sleeping alone, right? Because now you're just touring nonstop. You're away from your family. So.
How about the second verse? Anything new in the second verse for you?
The nurse in me loves checks the stats. You're better when you're bleeding. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I definitely want to talk about these lines here. I don't have anything to say about check the stats, but I understand why why that jumps out at you. You're better when you're bleeding. I'll wash my hands, these bloody prints. We've heard this. I don't know if it's a critique or just a comment about artists before. Some people prefer the songwriting when the artist was suffering. Mm-hmm. And that's what this made me think of. You're better when you're bleeding.
Yep.
Do I need to be suffering or in tragedy in order to write the best songs that I can possibly write? He'll wash his hands, these bloody prints, putting his bloody prints on the art that he's making right now, but at the cost of what?
Yeah.
That's what I got out of that. So
yeah, and I agree, right? Like, check the stats. You're better when you're bleeding. Again, the nurse in me is like, oh, vital signs, right? But like, it's a wreck. A wreck is what you needed. So you needed something tragic in order to draw from, right? And the check the stats could be something as simple as like, look at the Billboard Top 40, right? Like that got you where you needed to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bleeding part I think pops up a lot on the emo scene. Like Taking Back Sunday has that line about like, with this last breath that they'll apologize for bleeding on your shirt. But yeah, it's interesting, but it's also a little bit Shakespearean, right? Like that out damn spot. The woman who's like haunted and thinks that she needs. It's very Macbethian.
Okay.
Where it's,
I'm not that familiar.
So, in Macbeth, she's washing her hands because she's convinced that they're stained with blood.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it has this kind of Shakespearean quality with it that you're haunted by something. And so I really like it from that aspect too.
That sounds very connected to that writing then. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get that at all. Yeah, so he goes, stop, start again. It's hard admitting you're not fitting with your old friends. And then we get a new line here. It's so disarming watching all the walls come closing in on you. You've got no clue until, and then he jumps back into that. And he says 1-2 before the chorus, at least in the remastered version that I heard. So, and I only noticed that in the headphones, by the way.
And I think it is. It's disarming, right? It's disarming when you realize that your life has to change drastically or you're at a crossroads to make. And like that feeling like you're trapped a little bit in a situation, and maybe you've made that situation yourself, or maybe you found yourself in that situation. But yeah, going back into that chorus when he does that, it's just pieces of his life, or someone's life. I guess it doesn't have to be his, but pieces of someone's life.
What's interesting also about these lyrics is that he's talking about things that are happening to him or how bad it is, but some of which he's made decisions in these directions to pursue. He's made the decision to leave his long-term girlfriend. He's made the decision to try something new and write a song that maybe doesn't have anything to do with his former bandmates, or it's about the bandmates, but like what I mean. He's maybe venturing off into something new, and he's making these choices. But yeah, I agree. It's disarming. It's giving up a little bit of power over the predictable. Mm-hmm. Some things are predictable in life, and when you choose to do something completely different, it's not as predictable anymore, and you kind of lose a little bit of power.
Yeah.
Over things, so a little bit of control.
What do you make of the locked doors aren't that hard to bust through? Like, what does that mean to you?
My interpretation of that is basically making changes, trying new things, and it turns out that you can do it. Mm-hmm. You can go these different directions, and it always felt like those doors were locked, but maybe they're not locked.
So kind of like shattering.
Yeah, maybe they're easier to get through than you thought.
Yeah.
Than someone would have made him believe.
Yeah.
Is I guess where I was going with that.
No, that makes sense. Like shattering a glass ceiling then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you think?
Well, I was kind of going back and forth between a couple of things earlier, and I was, the old adage, like when one door closes, another one opens. I kind of thought that, or, when they talk about people like when you like lock up your heart or whatnot, maybe saying like we can fix this. It's not that hard to bust through this, even though I've locked that door to you. I don't know. That was kind of where I was at, but I like your interpretation much better.
Or, what you said made me think of another, is that maybe to get a little bit deeper into yourself, what wasn't as hard, once you kind of removed some of the barriers.
Yeah.
More looking internally instead of these external doors to go through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the bridge, I found this one really interesting because of the line, "I put my money where your mouth was."
Yeah, I don't know how to interpret that one. I'm pretty sure that's a line I've never seen or heard in any other song before.
Yeah.
I put my money where your mouth was. It's such a raw line the way he sings it.
Yeah.
In his studio, they could have redone that. They could have been like, oh, your voice kind of cracked and kind of went, like whatever that sound was.
Yeah.
But he chose to keep it like that really raw feeling. So whatever he's saying there, he really means it.
Well, and that's not what the saying is, right? It's like it's not.
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, put your money where your mouth is, right? So why would I put my money where your mouth is?
Yeah.
So is he betting on somebody else, or is somebody else betting on him? Or I've never been able to understand that one, but it's almost like you said, it's very raw and a little threatening because it's like, tastes good, doesn't it?
That bridge starts with, my head is screaming at me. It's screaming at me.
Yeah.
So is he talking to his head? My head is screaming at me because I put my money where your mouth was. I don't know. Probably not, but that's... And then, mouth tastes good, does it? Is that like a dig at somebody?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's like, see, it tastes good to have that fame or that money or whatever the thing is, right? Or if it's like an invitation, or is it like the devil that seduced you saying that to you? Like, see, I can give this to you.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that might make more sense actually to me.
Yeah. I don't know. It's such a weird line, though. I love it. It's raw. I really, really like how he delivers it, but it's weird.
How about this? The devil tempted me. So me being Andrew, me being the songwriter. The devil tempted me. I took the temptation. How about that? I did it.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Kind of like a dare. Kind of like I took the dare.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best I got with that. I don't know.
And then this is the weird line that we found so many errors in.
Oh, yeah. Spotify has it wrong, everybody, and probably everywhere, all the other streaming networks that list lyrics. So strange. Yeah, we chatted about this a while ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Because if you look up, it looks like he's talking about someone named Cam, like Cameron, basically everywhere. I think I found one site that does not have it listed that way, but it's actually Can't Sleep, which makes way more sense, in my opinion.
And is the rest of that line that I have here right? Because it was always that, and then it goes back into the chorus, right? Okay. So, yeah, it was not, I don't remember what else it said, but it was an odd stream of words there involving the name Cam, and it was capitalized, as if, like you said, a Cameron or something. It didn't make any sense. I'm glad we have the correct lyrics, so.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was not one that I ever sang along to at this point because I wouldn't have even known what to sing there. So.
Yeah. It did throw me off for a little bit. And the reason why it threw me off so much was because of Miss Delaney, where he says, "Aaron, I would never lie to you." And I was like, well, maybe there really is someone named Cam. I don't know. And so
yeah, that's true. Yeah. He only says that name once in that song. You're right.
Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, this does not make sense. And I pulled the booklet to verify. And then you actually, you found the corrected lyrics online.
I looked at like 6 different lyric sites to find one that said "can't sleep."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this has to be it. It can't be Cam Sleep. Anything else on lyrics?
No.
I think that's all I have.
Yeah, I would say the other thing that's a little odd about this song that breaks with traditional Andrew fashion is that generally when he gets to either the last chorus or the second to last chorus, he changes a word here or there. And he doesn't in this song at all. It never changes.
Oh, in this final chorus, yeah, it is.
He just,
Better get used to waking up alone, but you better get used to waking up alone is how it ends. But yeah, all the lines in that final chorus are the same as the previous. Yeah.
yeah. So that's a little bit unusual, especially like when you look at the choruses of Holiday from Rio and other ones and Everything in Transit. But I don't know. Overall, 10 out of 10. I love it. He should play it at least one time so it can be on Setlist FM.
Yeah, we need it to make an appearance here because we've talked about all these songs that he's never played in concert. And I guess we talked about People Running last time, and I guess he's played that like 5 times, right? But it's been over a decade, so.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite part or line of the song? Like, what's the best part of the song?
Again, I really love the "Did you stay true to what's been true to you?" But like from a musical standpoint, listening wise, I really liked the second time when he does that stop, 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 start again, when he really slows it down and just the inflection that he puts into it. I think that's probably my favorite part. How about you?
It's funny. The first time he says stop, stop, stop is my favorite part of the song. I just think it's so powerful because the music's going and it just feels like it's just like stop and the music stops.
Yeah.
I just think it's so, because I wasn't expecting it the first time. I mean, I always remember it ever since that I've listened to it. I always remember that like that. I wasn't expecting that. So, and how it goes out of that stop, stop, stop with the drum fill back to start again is just so cool. And I think it's probably similar the second time, but I don't know, something about how it kind of surprises me every time in that first verse. Well, let's touch base on an earlier topic. So there's a demo version we've mentioned, and I do think it's very different.
This is one of the songs, though, that I do feel like stripped down, it's just as good as with the production and that. I mean, I think you do miss some things, right? Like you were saying with the transition of the stop with the drum beats in there, but
yeah.
You know,
I think I would miss. There's things I would miss if it if he just came out and played it on a piano at a live show. I would definitely miss the band.
There are other songs that are stripped down that I'm just like, I don't know that's my favorite way to enjoy this song. I don't know this one though. I think I would miss having that, but I think that it's still it holds its own even without it, because I think it's just so interesting lyrically how he's done some of the stuff.
I'm curious, why this song? You love a lot of Jack's Mannequin. You love a lot of Andrew Mann. I know you love more than just Jack's Mannequin. But there's other songs that we've talked about, on the side that aren't Jack's Mannequin. But so why this song right now? Like, why did you want to talk about this one today?
You know, as we were going through what's left out of Jack's Mannequin, I think that there's quite a few songs that we think about constantly in the fan base. And then there's certain songs that they're like these hidden gems. And this is one of these songs that's just that hidden gem. And it's a song, I'm sure you too have like a whole like Andrew collection playlist, and I'll throw it on shuffle occasionally. And then this is one of those songs that as soon as it comes on, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I get into this phase of listening to it for the next like 2 weeks in a row. And I think that it's a song we don't hear very much. I don't know. I just really enjoy the message in it. And it speaks to me on a lot of levels. I had a friend that decided not to be friends with our group of friends anymore. And it was really hard to go through, to be on that side of things. And so this song, it came out several years, like 5 years before that happened, but it was always a song that I would go back to that was kind of cathartic for me to have that piece of it, to realize like someone else has been there, someone else has gone through that, again, regardless of what side of that you've been on or your experience with that. And I think the interesting thing about all of this, because neither you nor I were involved in something corporate. I mean, you hear like, oh, this person was upset at this point or whatever. But to watch them all come back together on the cruise and see their interactions and see their friendship and realize that a lot of it speaks to your character. It speaks to the experiences you've gone through together, that all isn't lost. Like, that's been fascinating to me as well, to see that with some of the different experiences that I've had in my life. And so I think that that's why this song has always kind of really spoken to me.
I'm glad to hear that you also have a personal connection with the song lyrically, but also probably where you were in your life. I know we talked about that before, about how That was kind of a really special moment for you. You were finishing nursing school, starting your career, and this music probably really spoke to you back then. But it sounds like it's some of it's really kind of changed meaning for you over time.
And I think that's something too, like when we speak about Andrew as a songwriter, like, okay, there's If You See Jordan, right, which is like a 17-year-old wrote a song about someone in high school. But a lot of the songs outside of that he's written, sure, there was something that happened when you were 18 to 20, but just the depth at which he's looked at things and written about them, even as I'm approaching 40, I'm able to find pieces of that speak to different experiences I've had in my life, and I can apply it to. And there's the nostalgia factor of going back to listen to a song from 2003, absolutely. But there's also the ability to still apply that to our lives outside of that early 20s. That's just absolutely wonderful,
It is. It is amazing that you can listen to these songs and kind of apply them much later down the road. I love that too about it. So thanks so much for joining me on this episode, Lindsay. Always a great talk. And I told you before, I always learn things when you come onto the show. I definitely did about these lyrics. So it's interesting when you bring these songs that I don't have as much familiarity with too, because I kind of get a new look on a song that, again, it's a little different when it's a song I know very well, which, will be a little bit of a difference in the next episode that we talk about. We're going to come back to that. But it was really cool to have a conversation with you about this song in particular, kind of get your view on it. I love hearing when it's a song I don't maybe love as much. I love hearing why someone else loves it so much. So
yeah.
Now I think it's interesting to me. I was going to point this out earlier, but I was kind of waiting for you to say it. During the course of our conversation, you made a comparison to MFEO, Made for Each Other.
Mm-hmm.
Every episode we've talked, do you know that you've made a comparison to Made for Each Other?
That's because it's my favorite song, Steve.
Right, I know, yeah. So that's why I said I was going to come back to it at the end, because I just thought, and then after that point, you made a comparison. I can't remember what it is at this moment, but so everything kind of comes back to it. So it's perfect. This is the first time I've ever done this on the podcast. Not a huge deal, but like it is a little bit different for me. I'm announcing the next song we're talking about and who the guests are. So I don't normally, maybe it's because I don't normally plan that far ahead. I don't know. But this time I am. So thank you to you and Hazel for being able to do that. Next episode, we'll be talking about Made for Each Other, both parts 1 and 2. And apparently it's Lindsay's favorite song. Now that I know that. I don't know if I knew that before tonight. Did I know that?
I don't know, but that's always been my favorite song. Do we know if it's Hazel's favorite song?
I don't know. We're gonna find out in a couple weeks here. What we have is Everything in Transit. We've talked a lot about Everything in Transit tonight. As much as you love Locked Doors, as much as you love the tracks on Everything in Transit, are you good with the fact that Locked Doors wasn't a part of this original album?
I'm so good with it.
Is that okay with you? Okay.
I think that it belongs with People and Things. And like full disclosure, when we were at the Sylvie and we did the meet and greet, I did ask Andrew, I was like, do you not play anything from People and Things as a rule? Like not anything, obviously he plays stuff from it, but like
much,
just, it's not as much. And he told me no. He's like, yeah, I don't know. It gets passed over a little bit. Like it's not intentional at all. But I did notice when we were on the cruise that he played more heavily from People and Things than he had.
I would say a little bit.
Nice.
Do you know how many songs he played from People and Things?
Was it 5? 4?
4. It was only 4.
Yeah.
So I still feel like it wasn't much in comparison to every other album that he has.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I did think about that. I made a list of all the songs that he played because I'm a nerd about it. And I was like, only 4 from People and Things still. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see something different this year. I don't know.
Yeah, I do. I hope, especially with Red Rocks, with it being like 3 pianos, that there's going to be more. And, I do. I think that album just doesn't get as much love. And I'm not sure why. If it's us and the fan base not proclaiming our love for it as much or whatnot, but
you heard it here tonight. We do fawn over Everything in Transit quite a bit as a fan
I know
base.
because it's the perfect album, Steve.
Yeah,
like,
it is a perfect album.
Name another album. Like honestly, if I had to give you my top 2 albums right now, like gun to my head, it's going to be Rumors from Fleetwood Mac and Everything in Transit from Jack's Mannequin. It's just the 2 it's going to be, and it's perfect. I don't know what else to say.
No, I hear you. Yeah, it doesn't mean that People and Things isn't a good album. It's just it's not Everything in Transit. So,
Well, yeah.
I hate to even
like,
say it. That sounds so bad, but
it's true. But that's also my feeling for something corporate too, right? Like North, phenomenal. Leaving Through
Yeah.
the Window, also great.
pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
decent. But like, it's everything in transit. I think that we can all agree on, for the most part, almost all of us. So,
Yeah. Which is what makes this year so great. Not only the return of Jack's Mannequin, it's the 20th anniversary of everything transit. It'd be nice to see him mix it up, and like we're saying, so like maybe a little bit of everything from Jack's Mannequin would be cool to see this year. We'll find out soon. Maybe we'll get some tour dates soon, and we'll kind of get an idea of what they're planning for this year.
yeah, that'd be great. And Andrew and band, if you're listening, if we're doing a full album playthrough, may I suggest that we do the entirety of everything with the B-sides on it, including Locked Doors and Lonely for Her and Meet Me at Your Window and Lights and Buzz and Last Try Arizona.
There you go. Yeah. That, I mean, it's only five more songs, so that's not bad.
Yeah, basically. Like, that's nothing, right?
You guys have a few months. Start learning it.
That's right. And Out of It, just like as, I don't know, an encore, if you're really looking to impress me and Steve.
And I know you've been clamoring for Out of It for years, so maybe this will be the year for that one, too. We're going to continue Jack's January, believe it or not, into February, actually. I just like the sound of Jack's January, silly as it sounds, but we're going to continue on into February. I have a couple more episodes based on Jack's Mannequin. We'll talk about Made for Each Other in a couple weeks here. We'll find out what Hazel thinks of that song. We know that Lindsay likes it a whole lot. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. Thanks again to Lindsay for joining me. And if anyone else, like Lindsay and like Hazel, want to come to the podcast, tell me about your favorite song, email me at somethinginthewilderness@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram. I always have a lot of fun chatting with other Andrew fans about this music that we love so much. These locked doors aren't that hard to bust through. Did you stay true to what's been true to you?